Welcome to It's Never Boring with Kayley Loring, a special series from the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, where author Kayley Loring sits down and chats about all sorts of things with the narrators of her audiobooks. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the chaos.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 2, Episode 13 of the Audiobook Lovin Podcast. Today is the first official episode of the It's Never Boring with Kayley Loring. Today's Kayley's... Stop laughing. See, it's already starting. Today's guest, Kayley's guest is narrator Zachary Weber. And we have a couple of questions that Kayley's doing, and then we have some questions that fans and readers from Kayleyville, which is Kayley Reader Group, and Zach's Audio Crew, which is his official fan group, have submitted. So Kayley, go on, take it away.
Well, Zach, thank you so much for giving us a moment of your time in this very busy portion of your splendid life. I appreciate I didn't have to harass or berate you too much to get you to schedule this, because it could have been so much worse. I only had to call you a little turd once.
Yeah, and it worked.
And it worked. You got right on it.
Oh, yeah. And hopefully more than just one moment, a series of moments in which we talk about. I mean, I'm terrified of what you're going to do to me today, and that's a good sign.
That's the vibe I'm trying to set here. I just want to scare people.
Cool. It's working already.
You actually are very busy, like right now. Like, did you want to talk about the big project that you have coming
at this exact moment? Yes.
This week?
Yeah. At the end of the week, I'm starting the new book in the 50 Shades series that's from Christian Gray's perspective. Everybody always knows this, but I feel I have to explain the whole thing. Freed by E.L. James. I've been waiting, I think, three years amidst probably 1,000 people asking me, like, are you gonna do it? Like, well, I did the other two. It would be cruel if I didn't do this one. But then again, it had been 3 years, so I was like, okay, I guess I have to worry. But then there was nothing to worry about. And
well, because she hadn't written it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's that issue too.
Right, but that just gave everybody enough time to be like, are you gonna do it? And I questioned whether or not I was going to do it, even though I was pretty sure I was going to do it. She's my friend, and she's probably going to cast it again. So, yeah, that's starting this week. It's a long book.
Yeah. So do you have to listen to some of your narration of, like, Gray and Darker to get back in that headspace and find that very specific rhythm and cadence of Christian Grey, or are you just jumping in and getting a feel for the new book?
Well, this is a double-edged sword. I feel like he lives within me.
Really?
But also
nice.
But also I'm going to listen to it.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I mean, probably not fully, but I'll certainly do the audiobook version of skimming, whatever that is, because I don't really listen to audiobooks that much. But I'll just find some, key chapters maybe, and just get the tone. Yeah.
Do you think your voice has changed over the year? Like, obviously your skills have evolved.
I know my voice.
Yeah. Are you going to try
what does that mean? I know my...
You tell me.
The tone that she took that question in, it's just the tone that she said it,
I know my voice. I know my voice has changed, because, like, if I have, like, listened to Gray a little bit, I go back and I definitely sound younger. Hopefully, in the scale of the amount of time that passes in the story, it makes sense for him to sound...
Right.
6 years younger or whatever. I can't remember how much time passes from beginning to end of that series.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I definitely sound younger. I definitely am not as proud of that work. I still think Darker's pretty great. I think I really sunk my teeth into what it means to narrate an audiobook by 2018, but in 2015 I was still very, very new at it. So it was not bad, but it was certainly like a little monotone, a little not I don't know. I didn't that on a technical basis, but more so, I don't think I really understood, like, how to just sit there and tell a whole story for a while,
Sure.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because I actually was wondering if the monotone was a choice.
It was. There was a bit of it. Yeah, for sure. Because he's, He's very obviously dark, to me, scary man. Having played him, I feel like I can say he's, it's somewhat sociopathic behavior. It's done out of love. He doesn't understand how to love, so that's how he acts. And for that reason, I think, and because of the trajectory of his career path, obviously, there's like that kind of person is not going to reveal themselves. Period. Most of the time. So I think it plays well, but also like there are intricacies that I think I know how to pick up on now that I did not then. So you're right. I wasn't talented then, and I am now.
That is not what I meant.
And he brings it full circle.
Sorry.
Are you happy there, Kayley? Are you happy?
My skills have evolved. I've been writing these books for 3 years now, and I'm too scared to even look at the first book that I ever wrote, or even the books that I wrote in the first year. So, I mean, I don't mean that as an insult, like you weren't good before. I mean, we all get better as we go. So that's what I meant.
Absolutely. I'm obviously also kidding. I don't think you
Are you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So for people who listened to my first interview with Viv last year, they might remember that when I was talking about the audiobook for Troublemaker, I had mentioned listening to your interview with Viv earlier that year, and how it kind of inspired the way I wrote the character of Alex Vega for you, because I was so moved by certain things you said, and just how like open and forthcoming you were, and just your whole vibe. And I just like wanted to give you a hug, and the HEA that you deserve, and that writing the novel ended up being my way of doing that. And they might be interested to know that Viv actually sent you the clip of me talking about you, which I didn't know until you told me, which is fucking awesome. Thanks, Viv.
Love you.
Well, I mean, there's no injury there. You said such nice things, and I find myself needing an ego boost once a week. You
need the validation.
Yeah, certainly. So it was really, really nice to hear you say all that.
Well, I'm glad. So anyways, there's a nice symmetry to having this opportunity for us to talk on here now, instead of our little chats on Instagram.
Yes.
Totally random Instagram
our
chats.
Little curious nail biters. I think they're exciting. You're on the attack.
Do ya?
Let's just say that. Let's just say you're usually on the attack. And that's okay, because it keeps me on my toes. Because usually I'm not on my toes because I like sitting down.
Yeah, because you have trouble with your stool.
Right. As was mentioned before.
It's a callback that the listeners aren't going to understand.
They're not. Wait,
and it'll be.
Okay.
Well, see, Viv, now you're going to have to go back and add that stuff in.
Yeah.
This is what we did the last time.
Oh my God, yeah.
Connor McKenzie.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing like when we were talking and then you were bringing Zach up and how you were going, oh, he's so great and all this accolade and stuff. That's what the reason why I shared it with Zach is the narrators don't get to hear a lot of this stuff because obviously I know they're busy. They're not listening to to my podcast and stuff like that. And so I know that they're so isolated. Why not give them a little bit like loving,
Yeah. And you had asked like if or why I didn't tell him directly. And it was because at that point, Zach and I were just
starting
chatting on Instagram, and I didn't want to send this like huge block of text to him about all my feelings about why I wrote it the way I did and all that kind of stuff. Because I kind of I loved hearing the audiobook so much that I could only communicate my feelings in emojis at that point. It was just like a series of emoji conversations. So stupid.
Yeah.
But
the early days, huh? But yeah, I wanted to say, like, and I've only expressed this to you privately, but I feel it should be public. It's like I have only done, I don't even think, a handful of books that are set in a place that I've lived exactly. Like anytime I do a book that's set in New York, it's always Manhattan. And I'm always like, I kind of know that, but really I don't, because I was a poor child when I lived in Manhattan, so I didn't have like the Manhattan experience that a lot of these characters have. But now I live in the exact neighborhoods that you describe in your book, and so it was very easy to fall into, the rhythm of it. So I also appreciate you for that. There you go.
You're welcome. Well, like I told you, that was also the neighborhood that I lived in for quite a while. And so it was kind of funny to know that you had actually been to certain locations quite frequently that I wrote about in that book.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool. But anyway, so I guess, should I talk about like who Zach is? I mean, I know everybody probably knows, but Zach is, for those of you who don't know, one of the most prolific and for sure beloved romance narrators out there, and certainly one of the most interactive on social media. And you are also an actor in TV and film and sketch comedy, and you're a singer/musician with a band called Night Darling, and you're writing a book now. We can talk about all this stuff later. But on Instagram, you are kind of like always there, entertaining and educating and starting conversations, and you're just really awesome to follow. And I just watched your IG story impressions from yesterday, which were crazy and awesome. And I'm guessing the extra strength Tylenol really worked for you.
Yeah. The sickness, like the sick feeling is worn off. I just feel like I'm in a haze now, and there's some sort of energy coming out of it, and it feels good to have done that weird cathartic IG experience.
It was very, very amusing, and people seem to be loving it. They're talking about it on Facebook. They're talking about your Instagram on Facebook.
That's and on Twitter. And on Twitter.
I wouldn't know about that.
Yeah.
And by the way, do you have a cat now?
I have a cat now. Her name is Turkey.
I love that.
She's adorable and
she's so cute.
Fucking psycho.
Perfect.
She's just, she's a regular cat in a lot of ways. She's 3. She still wants to play, and she doesn't need too much. She's a little picky about food, but it took like a week or two of getting used to being here, just being in a new place by herself, or with me, as opposed to like, she was in a shelter. So she was with like all kinds of other animals. But the first week I was petting her, and I felt like the moment of like, oh my God, I really have an animal. There's a soul in my home outside of me now. And I was like just petting her, and then I stopped for 1 second, and she hooked into my right forearm, and I was like, no. Like I crescendoed no, and like didn't like thrash around or anything, but she stayed hooked, her fangs in my arm, and there's been a bit of a learning curve.
She loves
there. I think she's just, she was still in a state of confusion. She wanted to be pet, but then she didn't want to, she still doesn't really know who I am. So, it's going well. I don't know if you.
This sounds like me in the beginning of a relationship, by the way. That's like to a T.
Sounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So anyways, you're a very active person, and I'm tired just from listing all of those things, but I'm so curious, like you seem like an extrovert, but are you actually an introvert? Because I know you talk about being nervous in public speaking and stuff like that, but you're always doing it, and that's very impressive to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the internet allows for a person to appear a certain way. I don't know. I grew up I had a relatively sheltered life before I started doing theater on stage. Like I can safely say I was an introvert before that happened. And then I think I just wanted to express myself in that way. Like I was always silly, so I wanted to be silly for a lot of people and have people like me for it.
Professionally silly.
15, yeah. And I think it just, I don't like talking as myself in front of people. God forbid. Like that terrifies me. So I think that sort of showcases the fact that I think I really am an introvert, but like most people that know me would heartily disagree, because it's not really how I act around people that I'm close to. I don't
Yeah.
know. I still don't know the answer to that question.
Well, is it draining for you? Like after you've been with people, do you need to recover? Because that's how I am.
Only if it
That
doesn't
means
go really well.
okay.
Only if, like,
Which is rare, I'm sure.
I mean, sort of. Only if like I haven't made like solid friends who think I'm funny out of the strangers in the room, and my own friend are like, "Oh yeah, what a guy." I don't know. I don't know. As long as if there's not a solid social foundation that I think is already there, then I have to go away into my hovel.
So anything less than like mild appreciation to a standing ovation, and you have to go home and like recover from that. My God,
absolutely.
My cat got out of my room.
Oh my God.
Speaking, this is insane.
Turkey might start meowing at some point.
Can you hear it? Is it really loud? Oh my God. Let me know if you want me to put him back in the room if this is too distracting. Like
I don't care.
He's never good.
Anyway, so this was actually a perfect lead into what I wanted to say is that like I always prefer to cast narrators that have some training and experience in acting in theater. So like, what is your background? You studied in New York, and that was when you were a teenager? Like, was that a summer thing, or did you do that for college too?
I was an orchestra nerd. Well, actually, no, I started as an art class nerd. Like I wanted to, I had so many bad teachers. Here's the thing. I loved art because it was something I could do on my own, and I was often alone. Yeah. And then orchestra was my first really actual foray into like performance of any kind. And
violin?
Yeah.
Is that when you started violin?
Yeah, in 5th grade. And then I felt pretty, I was pretty skilled, I would say, for someone who started a little bit later than other kids, but I also wasn't amazing, and I didn't practice. So once theater came around in high school, I was like, oh, that's way more immediately gratifying than this. And I don't have to do the same thing as everyone else. I can do something different every time. So I did that. And then I went to a summer theater program at NYU after my junior year of high school.
Did you have to audition?
It was really just an application. I think, we didn't have to tape anything or anything like that. Because that was like the days of like sending in taped auditions and stuff. At least for high school students. And then, I think like that was my first time in New York, and my parents didn't even come with me. I was just by myself. I was
Where did you stay?
Terrified. We stayed in the dorms. It's like at NYU. Like an all-encompassing, like basically college experience, and they basically just want to convince you to come to NYU, and it totally worked.
Okay.
And
so you did? Yeah. Did you study at NYU?
Yeah, and then I ended up going to NYU a year after. I studied at that little program at the Experimental Theater Wing. There are a bunch of different studios in the drama program at NYU, and then I ended up going and studying there again when I went to. And I also studied at the Classical Studio, which is a Shakespeare-based studio there. And
you did?
Yeah. So I have a bit of a range between the avant-garde and the classics.
Yeah. And then you had like the technique kind of workshops. Like, did you learn like vocal?
There was, it was a varied sort of thing. Cause like in the Experimental Theater Wing, everything is like very, I don't know what word would be right. It's very like guttural, childlike stuff where you just are like sort of opening your guts, and like the voice classes there are like a lot of yelling and just releasing and screaming and stuff, but learning to do it without hurting yourself. And I think that was the main goal there. And then like there was more refining stuff, the Alexander technique, and breathing in both ways, but that stuff in the Classical Studio,
and movement too, right? Like
tons of movement. I mean, we had to take loads of dance classes, half of them that I really didn't want to at Experimental Theater Wing. I just was like, I'm not a ballet dancer. I'm not really even a dancer. So just let me do the stuff where you just wander around the room and act goofy in a postmodern way.
Which I feel like is what you do on Instagram most of the time.
Absolutely. I am postmodern. I feel like most things I do are postmodern.
Yeah.
But there was still
nice.
structure behind it, which was good because I needed that.
Yeah. Well, so and then did you ever actually perform in live theater, just like off Broadway or anything like that?
Yeah.
Or was it all within the college context? You did. Like what kind of plays did you do?
I think like I didn't do much because I moved. Sorry. I didn't do much because I moved right after college. But I did this one play at Harlem School of the Arts that was called Bintu, and it was by a writer from the Ivory Coast. I can't remember the playwright's name. It was a long time ago, but it was a really cool experience because it was like in a historically Black place, and it was an almost entirely Black play, and like it was just a very full experience for me to be ingrained in a situation like that and have a real appreciation for it. And like I like really, it was really, really good in-depth content too. Like it was a play
was
about
it political? It sounds
highly. It was very feminist. It's about a little girl who's like 15 who leads a gang of like boys that are older than her. That was her boyfriend, and
cool.
It was extremely violent. There was tons of onstage fights, and like it was just super fucking cool. That was like probably the most pro play that I did in New York when I was there. And then I started auditioning for like going to cattle calls for musicals and stuff, like Spring Awakening. I almost got like into it. I was very
like the big famous production that everybody
that was like before my time. That happened like when I arrived in New York, I think. But then this was like the national tour I auditioned for, and got pretty close. And then I was like, I guess I'll leave New York. I don't have any money.
And then you went back to Texas, or you went to LA?
I went to LA for a month with $0, no car, no friends, and
adventurous,
and pain in my heart. And then I left. I left a month later. Wasn't even able to pay my rent for the room that I shared with a guy. He probably didn't vote against me. And then I lived at home and worked at a bar and a restaurant for like 8 or 9 months. And then I came out to LA and shot a movie. And then I was like, oh, that's incentive enough. I saved up enough to come out and, live in
You had a plan this time.
apartment.
You had a plan this time, but you've been there since then?
Yeah, and as of, what's today? As of 3 days ago, it was 9 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Oof.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
No, it's great. I mean, I spent most of my adult life in LA before I moved here like 3 years ago. And I do miss it. I mean, I think I'm really glad that I've been here for the last year. Like, I think LA is probably one of the worst places to be in a pandemic, but
is it very rural where you are?
It's not rural. I'm living in a suburb for the first time in my life. So there's a lot of space. It's very quiet. I sort of, when I was like looking at real estate and still living in LA, I was just like, well, here's my budget. And I told my realtor, I was like, wherever I end up, I want to like the house. And if I end up in Portland, then, like I'll have a really fun life and go to a bunch of great restaurants and hang out with cool people. If I end up in Vancouver, then I'll probably just get a lot of writing done. And guess what? I've gotten nothing but writing done.
That's great.
Yeah. But, I went from being, I lived in that neighborhood in like kind of Northeast hipster LA, where I would just walk out and, there's all these great restaurants like a block away, and, oh, Michael Cera's walking by my house. That's cool. And here I'm like, why is somebody parking in front of my house? Like, it's just so...
Okay, so as soon as you move to the suburbs, you become an NIMBY.
I totally did.
I don't blame you. I probably would too.
So boring.
Yeah. Get off my lawn. Yeah.
Oh, that's the worst. There's somebody in the neighborhood who smokes when they go for a walk, and they always drop their butts.
The worst is when people are walking their dogs and don't pick up after their dogs in front of
that's
them.
illegal.
Yeah. Well,
is it?
I might have just made that up, but I'm sure they'll get a citation. It should be.
Yeah, I'll go out there saying Kayley said you should not be doing that and it's illegal.
You can put a
Fly
sign
all the
on your
way
lawn that
from
says
Florida.
Kayley says.
Fly from Florida to Washington and say, hey, local police in Vancouver, Kayley said a guy smoked a cigarette and put it out in his dog's shit. So you better get on
That is the
top.
most disgusting image.
You're welcome.
Wow. So thank you for
You're
that.
welcome.
But you're so open and forthcoming and raw and spontaneous, and I really admire that about you. And I've actually known more actors than like any other type of human in my life, and I love hanging out with actors because, you know, I'm a good engaging audience for them. Like clearly, you and I just get along so well because I make you feel great about yourself all the time. But it's also because I'm so fascinated by like how good actors are at knowing and communicating how they feel and what they want and how to try to get it, like even in the moment. And because that's something that I've always struggled with personally. And, you know, there's kind of a situation in my life right now where I'm kind of being forced to get better at it. But I guess like I want to know, like, is that something that you've always been good at, or is that from the training as an actor and a lot of therapy, or all of the above? Like, why are you like this? Go.
Why am I like this? I have spent the majority of my life in a state of terror about how I'm perceived and whether or not I matter. And recently disassociating from that, or having accepted that it's true, disassociating from that has been one of the greater benefits of my life. But the first thing that needed to happen was I needed to both pump like some juice into my ego and also get slapped in the face with reality at the same time. And that has been like the second major page in my life, because the first being like that I did not know how to talk to anyone. I was cruelly shy when I was a kid. Yeah, I didn't. Terrified.
Okay.
Utterly terrified. And that goes back to, I really don't know why. My parents were alarmed when when I suddenly transitioned into wanting to be in plays on stage. Now, granted, every time I've ever gone on stage, I want to throw up before, but for some reason, I think it just validates that I give a flying fuck about it every time. You know, I want a performance to be good, but it's taken. There's been a lot of periods of confusing growth, where I like just accept that this is the way it is, and like my neighbor is laughing so hard. Can you hear that?
No.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's a voice in my head. Anyway.
Or the ghost. I was going to say, or the ghost again.
Yeah.
I'll have our ghosts.
Anyway, this is a long winding way of saying, I needed to do a lot of soul searching and healing, and therapy was definitely a big part of that. But I think it was in me always to want to like express myself in many ways. I just had to like find. I think I'm really now finally hitting the source of like, oh no, I need to communicate ideas to people that I care about. It's not just about being up there or doing it. It's because you want someone's mind to open up. And I hadn't always done that. It was more like you could sort of rest on the laurels of being entertaining, and I don't want to just be entertaining anymore. I want to, provoke thought.
Well, I'm even more impressed now. That's good for you.
Thank you.
No, really, it's really, 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 I mean, it's hard. It's so fucking hard. And you just jumped in and faced it.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Well, so you've narrated one of my books so far. I have you booked for something else later this year, which you might not remember. But so Troublemaker, what I'm getting at is it's a single dad story, and the son writer is 7.
Mm.
And your voice for him was so cute and perfect. And people are always talking about how great you are at doing little kid voices. And I'm wondering if there's like a specific age that you especially relate to. Like, how old is your inner child?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my inner child is about that age if I have an inner child.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the age that I think a lot, like that's the age where you start to like come into your own, like, that's when like the concept of philosophy starts to happen to you. You don't understand philosophy, but you understand like why things happen on Earth. You start to get a grasp on reality. So yeah, I mean, especially in therapy, that's like the kid I talk to. My email avatar for a while was me like as Spider-Man pretending to be really, really strong. And that it was like 8. And like, that's probably when I was starting to hit that stride of like, what is everything? But I've always loved kids. I've always gotten along with them really, really well.
Yeah, me too.
Basically any age. Or not at all, and we get in big fights.
Really? You get in fights with children?
I don't know. I think they're like. I think I like if a kid is really violent, like I would go like, okay, let's we can tussle a little bit, and then like at my grandma's church when I was like 16, this woman had like 5 boys, and they were like 2, 3, 4, 6, 8. That's it. They were just like this bunch of boys all within this similar age range. And one of them was really violent. And so if I played with one of them, then the other one would join in and it would become a fight. And then they would all scratch me and drag me and hold on to my legs and I wouldn't be able to walk. So like by reaching out and trying to be like, hi, I would like to hang out with you kid, because I love hanging out with kids, I ended up being attacked. But that's not the usual case. Most of the time,
with cats and some kids.
Just anything smaller than me. They want to hurt me. And that's okay because they need an outlet. No, but like I always like love to hang out with my friends' kids because like, I don't know, all they want to do is to have fun all the time. And if I'm not tired, that's me too. So,
if you're not tired.
But they also have this innocence about them that I think that you also have, Zach.
Oh, shucks.
And, you have this like everything, like this a concept of the world is actually good, and you can see the good in people.
Yeah.
And you try to see the good in people, and I think that kids also bring that out in you.
Yeah, I at least see the good in people when I'm in front of them. I think I get really, really angry at the world. So you're half right, because like
humanity.
When I'm in front of someone, I try to go like, I am trying to understand you and I want to be present with you. But if I am like alone and thinking about how the terrible misdeeds that men and sometimes women, but mostly men have done historically, then I really have trouble trusting people. But yes, like I think I can connect with a kid because like they don't know anything. It must be such bliss to not. Yeah. But as far as like doing a kid voice, I mean, I had struggled with it for a while initially because I didn't want to just like, you don't want to just do this nasally like cartoony thing. So it's like really like you don't lose like necessarily the low end of your voice or anything. You just, I have trouble explaining this and explaining like how to narrate in a woman's voice. You just kind of have to just be them. Don't try and sound like them,
Yeah. Do you think of a particular kid ever, or like, are you doing you as a kid, do you think?
Sometimes, I mean, a little bit. It's usually like, a lot of the times when I'm doing this, it's like narrating other characters. It's a composite. Because like, if you're just sitting there reading for hours and hours, like your mind will drift a bit. So even if you are paying attention to what's on the page, like a character, whether it's a lover or like a family member or whatever, like they drift in and out of having the face of someone you've seen before or multiple faces, you know? So like, as long as it's, as long as you're it. Escape again?
Yes, I don't understand.
It's official. She has a ghost.
The ghost of a cat. This is insane.
Look at the pussy. Put him away.
I'll put him in the. Do you want to take another break? I can put him in a.
Yeah, we'll talk about you again. Don't worry.
Okay. Well, you are recording this, so I will demand. To
Never boring with Kayley Loring.
Can that be the introduction?
Oh my god.
So, how's your writing coming along?
Moi. It's kind of not. I finally started doing an outline. I realized that
was going to be one of my questions.
Yes, you can go ahead and ask it so I can explain it.
Well, are you a planter or past? How was it?
A pantser or an outliner or a pantser? You probably started as a seat of your pantser, and then you realized that you're not going to get anywhere unless
you asked and answered the question. That's it.
I'm really good at this.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I started writing because I had an idea in my head for 40,000 years, and finally started just putting down.
He's old.
I'm so Cretaceous. But then I realized this is gonna be too insane. I understand how obviously this is gonna be too difficult. I understand how difficult it is for other people. My mom is big about when she writes, she's like very much an outliner and a note taker and a post-it haver around the computer.
Oh my god.
She's got everything all just on display if she's writing.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, so what I need is like a somewhere to sketch things out and literally write. Or else I think I kind of lose the virility of it. The essence of what it is, because being on a computer is not my.
So you're handwriting.
I'm not handwriting the thing, but I'm handwriting the outline now.
Yeah, no, I get it. I actually love switching back and forth between writing in a journal and also because it's like you're doing a second draft when you go from writing in a notebook and typing it up. Yeah. I mean, not that maybe you're not going to type up your outline, but you probably should.
Okay. I'll think about it. It's weird because I love reading other people's scripts and editing and picking things apart, but when it's my own stuff, it makes me want to die. So that's something.
Analyzing what you've written, you mean?
Yeah, well, yes. Analyzing, but then compartmentalizing really. That's where I'm going to struggle, and I know it's going to be hard, but I have to kind of push through. But that's the stage I'm at. I wrote a couple chapters, and then I was like, bye in December.
Well, it was very bold of you to just announce that you're writing a book on your Facebook page the morning that you decided to start writing a book. And I was thurious, did you do that so people would hold you accountable, or is it just your instinct to post things like that on social media?
Probably both. I don't know. Yes, it's definitely an accountability thing. It's definitely okay, there are probably going to be at least dozens of people who are going to be like, where is it? So I'm gonna,
what's it about?
Well, what is about it about?
Are you getting it? It is going to be romance. Yes.
So it's post-apocalyptic romance?
Yes, I think it's.
I didn't mean to say it like that, by the way.
I feel like you don't mean to say a lot of things you say in the way you say them. And so I already know that. I would say that it's not post-apocalyptic romance. It's post-apocalyptic and it's romance. You know what I mean? It's gonna. I'm not entirely sure yet, but it's definitely going to be a dystopian thriller that has a love story. Big, you know what I mean?
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's the story that's been living inside of you for
40,000 years. a long time. It wasn't that. It was like months and months where I was like, that would be a cool thing to do.
It was like pandemic months, which felt like 40,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I was finally just like, just do it. Just fucking do it. And it was, December, so no work was happening, and just sitting here with a computer and like making bad songs. So I was like, what if I did something that I kind of know how to do already? Yeah.
And I think that is a great place to stop for the moment. This episode is very funny, and we went very long, so much so that we actually have enough material for 2 full episodes. So we're going to be cutting it short here, and then you can come back on Friday, April 16th for part 2 of the It's Never Boring with Kayley Loring with guest Zachary Weber. Until next time, happy listening.
A heartfelt thank you to all of our Audiobook Lovin Podcast Patreon. Special thanks to Jen Franklin, Brittany Cottingham, Leanne Schwartz, Christy Reitz, Chrissy Font, Rhonda Pezzarello, Evelyn Clarisi, Michelle DaCosta, Michelle Bestard, Farah Blair, Candice Platel, Carol Liebner, Bethany Crane, Teresa Martin, Jennifer Mirabelli, Kayley Loring, Victoria Butler, Rula Hart, Carrie Wallace, Brittany Robinette Leiter, Dawn Darsh, Valerie Wall, Sarah McQueen, and Lynna Black Pedersen. The Audiobook Lovin Podcast has special Patreon access levels. Join today to receive early access to podcast episodes, exclusive content with our guests, and much more. Support the podcast by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/audiobooklovin. We thank you for your support.
Oh, good. You made it to the end. Thank you for joining us for our special series of It's Never Boring with Kayley Loring on the Audiobook Lovin Podcast, hosted by Viviana, Enchantress of Books. For links and more info about today's episode or the Audiobook Lovin Series, visit Viviana, enchantressofbooks.com. Please consider leaving a review whenever you listen to the podcast if you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, happy listening.